Currently in theaters from Shudder, but probably by the time you see this, and the ultimate resting place for this will be on Shudder, is the new sort of found footage throwback 70s TV horror spectacular Late Night with the Devil. This is the conceit of this film, is that you are watching a rare, never before aired master tape of a late night talk show that is it's a 1977 Halloween broadcast where they bring on supernatural experts and supernatural kind of people, and things supernatural happen. This stars David Dastmalchian, and I know I mispronounced his name. You may not know the name, but you've seen him endlessly in things. The thing I think of most recently is that he was in Suicide Squad, or as I like to call it, Suicide Squad, the good one, and he played the guy with the dots. Anyway, you recognize his face. It's nice to see him play a normal person in a movie because he tends to play oddball characters. He's sort of got that look about him, but he's always good. He's seemingly a very cool guy who likes these kind of movies, and he stars as the talk show host, the Johnny Carson avatar, as you were. Although they set up that he is not Johnny Carson. He's trying to, desperately to beat Carson in the ratings and keep the ratings of the show up. But if you think about classic 70s Tonight Show, that's vaguely what this looks like. And so the idea is that you are watching the master tape that's never been aired, so it's got that 70s TV talk show look, intercut with rare behind-the-scenes footage that was shot on black and white 16mm film backstage. So it cuts between the segment of the show and they go to break, then it cuts to the black and white footage so you can see the players talking to each other and things like that, and gives you a little bit extra insight into what's going on. This film has gotten a lot of buzz, pre-release, a lot of buzz, and now that it is currently, as I speak, in theaters, people are talking it up. Everybody's talking about it, and I was really surprised when I went to see this at my local AMC. This is currently they only have it at like one show a night at like 8:45 p.m., and the place was pretty packed. For a film, granted it was in their tiniest theater, but for a film that probably nobody thought was going to do much, and Shudder just put out in theaters to get some buzz, to get people to talk about it so that maybe they'll subscribe to Shudder when it hits Shudder. There was probably more people in that theater last night than there was in any of the mainstream blockbuster films that were playing at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. So, what did I think of this film? I was with it up to a point. I hate found footage. I loathe found footage. So when I heard that was kind of the idea, found footage tends to normally be people who, for some reason, are always recording something with their camcorder and never shut it off when they're about to be killed. But this is more like found footage in terms of, we found this tape and it's a TV show and it is what it is. It's got some manipulation with it because it starts off with a voiceover narration, setting the stage for the 70s, setting the stage for TV of the day, for who this character is supposed to be, this lead character, talk show host, and for what you're about to watch. So, and that's, interestingly enough, I didn't realize it until the end. That narration was done by Michael Ironside, who people know from, I knew him as Ham Tyler from V, the TV series, or V the Final Battle in the TV series, and some people know him from Scanners and endless other things, Smallville even. And once that narration is over, though, it's just presented as though you're watching this master tape right down to the countdown at the beginning, and then the cutaways to the black and white behind the scenes stuff. And I was worried going in that found footage to me always feels fake. And I know it's fake, and nobody's really generally being fooled into going to see or sitting down to watch a found footage movie thinking it's real. But the idea with found footage is supposed to feel real. And to me, everything they do to make it try to feel real makes it feel even more fake and takes me out of it. And whenever I see something that's supposed to be, found footage, and I see an actor clearly acting, it pulls me out of it. Or dialogue that feels written, it pulls me out of it. Or reasons why the camera is still rolling when logically it wouldn't be, it pulls me out of it. And as somebody with a background in, not that you can tell by watching this, but a background in film and TV production, if you set it in a TV of an era that I love and an era that I lived through, I'm probably going to look at it with a more critical eye than if you just told it if you just told the story as a movie. That's what I always feel about found footage, is if just shoot it like a regular film, and all these little things that take me out of it and that I'm hypercritical of will fall away because because it's a movie and I know what a movie is supposed to look like. So they nailed the style pretty well. There are times where I'm watching this where like they wouldn't have used that camera angle. Or they wouldn't have done that zoom. It wouldn't have been that tight. Or they go to replay a tape. And I don't know enough, and if somebody knows, let me know. I don't know enough, but I presume 1977 TV if you're doing a show as though it's live, if you're doing it live to tape, you would have one videotape machine that you would just be running, and you'd hit record at the beginning, and you might pause it here and there, or you might stop it here and there, but it's going to run. And at one point in this movie, they say, "Oh, can we play that footage that just happened a minute ago?" And they do like an instant replay. And unless studio talk shows of the day ran a redundant like 2 decks at once, to just in case something happens to the main deck, you still have that second copy. Unless they did that, I don't know if there was a way back then to do instant replay. But this is the kind of stuff that jumped out at me. That and the cutting back to the 16 footage, that's fine. Why somebody would be shooting all kinds of black and white, up close, very well mic'd 16 millimeter behind the scene footage during an average episode of a talk show it could have been done. I mean, 60 Minutes used to do things like that. They used to shoot behind the scenes and create an episode of a show about the making of an episode of something. But somebody else online pointed out that sort of took them out of it, because all these people are giving away and saying these really personal and heartfelt things that they probably wouldn't if there was a camera sitting there. And how many cameras were they using? Because this 16 millimeter behind the scenes footage is cutting between multiple camera angles and multiple simultaneous camera angles and all this other stuff. This is, again, the kind of thing that probably most normal people wouldn't think about, but the kind of thing that kind of jumps out to me. Dastmalchian, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name every time, he's really good in this. And he's good as this outwardly cheery and sassy TV host, but inwardly kind of smarmy and kind of dark. And maybe he's done some things to try to achieve a level of success that he desires that ultimately backfire on him. That's kind of the whole theme of this, is sort of giving up the path of light in order to achieve a selfish goal. And there's a thing that is in the sort of the precursor to the actual episode that you see. They show clips of his show and the narration and talking about what his life was up to the point where this episode occurred in his fictional timeline. And it's hinted at as to what happened and why something happened to somebody close to him in the context of the overall thing here. But the movie goes and it plays at a steady pace, and I wasn't bored, and I was pretty much with it up to a point, although some of the acting took me out of it. Like the guy who plays the producer of the show looked a little too aggressively 70s for me, and clearly was not an American actor. I've got this weird bug in my brain about what I call faux-Americans, where you have British or Australian actors playing American, and their accent is just off enough that it takes me out of it, and I notice it, and I'm always like, you couldn't find a guy who natively speaks English to just do this walk-on role? I don't know. A lot of Australian actors in this, so I didn't do the research. This quite possibly might have been shot in Australia. I believe the 2 directors that made the film are Australian, so it might have been shot there for all I know. But a couple of the actors I kind of noticed were faux-American, and that took me out a little bit. One of the actors, the performance was a little too actory. A lot of it seems really natural and feel like what you would have seen on a 70s, 1977 late night talk show, but some of it became a little bit too more performy, where it took me out of it. And then the film goes up to a point, and it goes up to a point that it lost me because it starts going really nuts. And the film kind of revolves around this little girl. Ultimately leads up, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but it leads up to this little girl who was part of like a satanic cult or a demonoid cult or something like that, and has the ability to sort of channel a demon. And that film leads up to her doing that. And when it happens, it's just like, okay, yeah, I remember The Exorcist. So many films, when they get to demonic possession, it's just like, hey, remember The Exorcist? Yep. Okay, great. Well, here's something sort of like that, but not as good. And that's what this movie does ultimately. I don't know how you would not do it that way, other than maybe not have it be a little girl, not have it be the same kind of makeup as the original Exorcist. I don't know. Eventually, things kind of get really intense in the movie, and it kind of lost me because a lot of special effects suddenly come in that just took me out of the film. Up to that point, it's a slow build with a lot of little threads and little hints of things that ultimately come together to reveal what the deal is with some of the characters. So it gets really crazy. The behind-the-scenes stuff kept taking me out of it. And then it becomes kind of something else at the end. Kind of something else that gets really wild and interesting visuals, interesting performance-wise, effects-wise, and it is intense. And it was effective for a lot of the people who were in the theater with me. Our theater was really well behaved, which was nice. I always get nervous with horror movies with a lot of like younger people there that they're going to talk or react too much, but they reacted where you want people to react in a horror movie. That's cool. It's a very effective movie. I'm not going to take that away from it, but ultimately all that stuff that gets done at the end really took me out of it, and it made me wonder, could it have just stopped at one point? Like at some point the tape just stops, and I think that's where the movie should have ended. The other stuff is interesting, but it went too far to like directly hammer over the head explain what is going on in the film that I didn't think was really necessary. And it makes me wonder, like when the movie ended, I'm like, if you gave me a copy of this, I could probably edit a version of this that I would like a lot better. If you started with all the behind the scenes stuff, if you got away from the whole this really happened and this is a representation of it, if you got away from that and you started with the behind the scenes, sort of like the Larry Sanders Show. So people have said this is a lot like a show called Ghost Watch, which is a one-off. If you've never seen Ghost Watch, you should. It's available on Blu-ray in America now. DVD too. It was a 90s British thing that was made to look like a British TV show for Halloween or whatever, and they're going to do a paranormal investigation, and things get weird and creepy. This movie's a lot like Ghost Watch. It's a bit like the WNUF Halloween special, which is another thing that I thought was really accurately and well done up to a point where it gets a little nutty and then took me out of it. It's a lot like those things. I feel like if this had been done more like a narrative film, either done as a narrative film or done like a Larry Sanders Show, where clearly this is fiction, but when we show you what is supposed to be the TV show within the context of this fiction, it is presented just like real TV would be. Larry Sanders was great for that. You saw the behind the scenes stuff and that was shot like TV or movie, but when they did the show, it was like you were watching the real show. It was so perfectly done. I kind of wish this movie was done that way, where you take that behind the scenes stuff and sure, it's fine that it's there, but maybe put some of that up front and don't try to explain why there are cameras and there is a documentary crew and all that. Just say, this is how you're seeing the reality of these people in the movie, and then when they're on TV and doing the show, we see the show. That would have worked better for me. Or just present it again like the WNUF, like you're just watching the show. Knock out the behind the scenes stuff, knock out that stuff at the end, and just have it play out as though you're watching an episode of a show. That's how it would have worked better for me. Anyway, this is a very popular film. A lot of people really like it. I'm very happy for the filmmakers that they're getting something that maybe originally they thought was just going to go straight to Shudder, and it's getting a theatrical release and doing rather well and getting people excited. So that's cool. Your mileage may vary. Available in theaters currently, probably for a little bit longer as I talk about this, because it's doing really well. The theater I was going to had it listed as cutting off this week, and that's why I went to see it last night, because I thought that would be my only chance. And apparently it's doing well enough that they've extended it another week. So eventually, on Shudder, Late Night with the Devil.